Welcome back to the Good Dude, Good Dad podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Ben, and we are so far away from each other.
You guys can't see this, but yeah, we're on opposite sides of the room.
We're excited, man. We've been telling you guys and keeping you updated, but no guest this week, first of all.
And we still haven't put the shirt up on the website.
And we have not done. That's my fault. Actually, no, that's Jimmy's fault because he hasn't sent us the photos.
Freaking Jimmy.
Dang, Jimmy.
Mr. Chio.
But what's cool is we're still making progress on our space. Like it's kind of weird. We're testing it out right now, but we just redid the entire studio. You can't fully see us, but we're literally on opposite sides of the room. We got a bunch of new furniture, and we're pretty excited about it. Sitting next to me, you can kind of see right here Jordan's wild boar from our hunt, and it's pretty sweet. But over, like, all in all, we're slowly moving. Then Jordan's doing a little. I'm doing an
Instagram story so they can actually see
as we're recording,
so they can see it.
That's perfect.
Boom.
And so the next big step is when we do have a guest, they'll be in the center of us two. Jordan's going to clip these two cameras back and forth, but we'll have next big move is some paint, some shelves, some fun things for the wall, and we're just going for it. And dude, it's crazy. I didn't even tell you this, but I had another compliment. Well, 2 compliments in the last couple of days about the podcast.
No way.
And it was just like one of those things where I was like, dude, with everything we got going on right now, Jordan's about to have his 3rd baby. I got a lot of work challenges and struggles, and obviously the daily life struggles, but we're still loving this. And it's still something that we're passionate about, and I'm enjoying. And even though we just spent 2 hours assembling furniture and rearranging a room, like, it's still so fun. Like, I was like, oh, like, we get to go do that today.
Yeah.
But all that to say is, like, we couldn't do a lot of this without the support of people.
100%.
Obviously, we still need our listens to grow. YouTube is like a hard thing when it comes to this, but we need more, like, views. We need more followers on Instagram, more encouragement, more support. The merch stuff, like, we've had, like, decent sales with it, which is kind of cool.
Sweet. But
nowhere near, obviously, what we want to do with it and what will enable us to, keep funding other things.
We don't even have our, like, coolest stuff up there yet.
No,
which we'll do.
This has been a passion project, but we genuinely think it could be something really cool.
I mean, yeah, this isn't something we do full time. Like, this is, like you said, a passion project. And it's kind of like what you were saying last week, where you're saying, like, being with my wife is life-giving. Like, this, for me, is life-giving. Like, every time we leave here, I usually end up calling Caitlin, like, immediately afterwards. And she's like, how was it? And I'm always like, it was freaking awesome. And I'm like, I leave when what's really cool, actually, is my kids get it. And like, anytime they see our picture up on, like, our, like the tablet on the car, they're like, good dude, good dad. Or like today, I was like, hey, like, they're like, hey, dad, are you going to be here all day? I'm like, no, I'm going to go do good dude, good dad. They're like, oh, you're going to go help people with your friends and Mr. Ben? I'm like,
so
yeah.
fun,
and they're like, oh, good dude, good dad, And
That's
so
cool.
Dude, I know, I really love doing this. I'm having a really good time.
Same. And dude, my kids do the same thing.
Yeah.
Cash and Bo will both be like, or Bo uses his good dude, good dad cup almost every morning for his, like, his coffee. And he'll use it all the time. And Cash, I'll be like taking her to school on Tuesdays. It's just it's just me and her. It's my time with her before school. And I'll be like, Cash, what do you want to listen to? This was Tuesday. And she was like, She named a specific song first. And then she was like, but do you have a new Good Dude, Good Dad episode? And I was like, like, why do you want to listen to that? She's like, because it's like fun. She was like, I get to hear you. And she was like, I get to hear Jordan. And she's like, it's Good Dude, Good Dad. I was like, whoa.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I was talking with Caitlin the other day. I was like, from a kid's perspective, like, they don't really understand that, like, we can put stuff up on YouTube and, like, on the radio. Like, they're just thinking, like, oh, I was just listening to Luke Combs and now I'm listening to my dad on the same radio. I'm like, as a kid, that's got to be kind of like a pretty fun experience.
100%. Again, no guest today. Jordan has a topic that he wants to bring up, and we're just going to talk about it. We haven't talked about it since or at all. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so just like a lot of times when Ben and I do this kind of stuff, we don't really talk about it really much before, other than like right before we sit down, we throw out a topic. So when we're talking about things, it's kind of off the top of our head, like we don't really have super tons of time to think about it. So always give us grace when we're talking about certain things, because usually we go back later and we'll address them. But we had made a post last week, and it said, if you want to change the world, start at your home. And it's funny because the more that came, I did the post, so it came to me and I thought about it, and then it's kind of just been on my mind lately. Like there's a pretty big epidemic going on right now with young kids and suicide, and there's a really, really big epidemic with fentanyl coming across the border. Like, I'm not going to get all political about all that, but there's a big fentanyl crisis. There's a big drug crisis. Like, as the United States, we're the biggest consumer of narcotics and drugs out of really any country. I mean, we're the biggest supporter of all those different things. And so, that being said, like, what does it mean to you? Like, if we really want to change the world, right? Election season's coming up. That's awesome too. There's voting and all that stuff. I encourage you, get out and vote. Bring someone to the polls to vote. But if you really, really want to impact your world, if you really want to change your home, if you really want to change the world, it starts in your home.
Yeah.
And I heard something really cool the other day that said, the only thing in life that you can take with you to heaven is your family. And it's like, you can't take your worldly possessions. You can't take money. But you can take your kids. And that's the only thing, and your wife. But that's the only thing you can take to heaven. So I'm just kind of curious. I'll spitball off of you too, but like, what are your thoughts around, if you want to change the world, start it at home?
Yeah. Well, before I say that, it's actually funny that this is the topic we're talking about, because I think it was last Sunday, our pastor said something in service, and it like resonated with me. And it kind of goes with what you're talking about with, the amount of drug issues we have / mental health / substance abuse as a whole. But he said we live in a world longing for belonging.
Ooh. So
like, we live in a world longing for belonging. And I literally had to like write it down, because I was like, oh, that's actually really good. Because that goes into kind of what you're talking about. Like, the world we're living in right now, and the climate we're living in, the place we live in, the country we live in, everything's always so freaking polarizing. Like, but living in a world longing for belonging shows in our daily life, right? It shows with social media, instant gratification. Like, I don't want to get down this road, but like OnlyFans, like, that is, you're longing for belonging. You're wanting something to fill something in your own life. And so you're resorting to whatever that may be. It's whatever. You're an OnlyFans model. You're obsessed with porn. You're addicted to porn, drugs, money. You're obsessed with making money and obsessed with what money can do for you, the fancy things, keeping up with the Joneses, like everything that we're seeing right now through the lens of social media specific goes to longing for belonging. And I've always said, like, I've said this for years now, throughout just different ministry opportunities I've had through Hidden House, like either speaking to young adults or like worship nights that we've hosted, and little things like it's been something I've been saying for a while, and I actually got it from one of my baristas years ago, and I kind of spun it and made it my own. But people want to be seen, known, and heard, right? Seen, known, heard. They want to be seen because we're not designed to be by ourselves. They want to be known because they want to be, they want to be valued, and they want to be heard because they want they want to know that they're validated in what they're saying, or that somebody cares, that somebody sees them, that somebody hears them, that somebody understands them, that somebody gets what they're going through, or somebody likes you or hates you or criticizes you. People want to be seen, known, and heard. And that quote that, Pastor Keith said about the longing for belonging is so evident. And it's ironic that, your topic you wanted to talk about today was making a difference and changing it, like starting with our home life, right? Like, in our home, in my opinion, I want my kids to be seen, known, and heard. I want them to know that they are valued. I want them to know that they are loved, that they're not just loved by me and their mom and their family and their friends, but like that God loves them, and I want them to be validated in knowing that their self-worth comes through their image and likeliness of replicating like what it means to be a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
And for me, I want them to have a sense of longing for belonging to the right things. I want them to have a sense for wanting to be seen, known, and heard for the right things,
right.
you know? And so I think when I think about the impact you can have on your home first, I think ultimately it points back to obviously my faith, but if I'm not doing my best job in developing my walk with Jesus and showing that in my daily life through how I choose to act with my wife, my children, the guests that we have that come through our house, then I don't think I'm setting them up for success when it comes to that. And so for me, starting at home is instilling in my children at a young age, like their faith. Obviously, they're going to have to make that own choice for themselves someday. But if they've seen how their parents have conducted themselves through every circumstance, I think they have a good shot, right?
Right.
But it also goes to values that I want them to understand. Values meaning hard work, dedication, being trustworthy, being committed. We live in such a fast-paced life where I feel like a lot of the younger generation, this isn't a dig at anyone, but I see it because of the businesses we have. Like people are so quick to kind of just jump ship when things are either hard or when things aren't going the way they expect, or it's just all these things. But I
follow through seems to be a big issue.
Yeah, like it's dropped off a little bit. And so for me at home, it's, hey, when you start something, we finish something. When you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. Being kind, but being strong, and learning discernment and having discipline, not just discipline with listening to your mom and dad, but discipline when it comes to the things we choose to do. So my 5-year-old, she wants to get back into dance. And I'm like, great. You know, she broke her arm. She's still not healed. So she's been very, kind of trigger shy with doing a lot of things, but she wants to go back to dance. And I'm going to use this opportunity to tell her, like, absolutely. We're going to have to play it by ear. Like if you fall or something, we're going to have to like kind of play it by ear. But if you're wanting to go back, you're going to be committed and you're going to give it your all. And I want my kids to know that no matter what we are involved in, you do it and you see it through, you follow through, and you endure when it sucks. Because I can tell you, things are going to suck. And it's how you deal with it. It's how you let these things and these situations and these instances in your life affect what you're doing. But if you're doing it and you're letting it and you're using it for more of a better purpose, then I think it's worth it. But
yeah, it's like I love that you're going to do that. It's like we talked about it with on my solo podcast and with my dad. It was like those moments where my parents, because we both have younger kids, right? So we're talking out of the perspective of younger parents, and as our kids get older, we'll do that. But being that age, and then now being the age that I am, I remember I talked about it where my dad made me follow through with things.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, another great example was my parents. I was lucky enough to have two parents that let me kind of have a say in how I was schooled in a way. So every year, the majority of my life I was homeschooled. Every year we'd sit down, parents would kind of be like, okay, do you want to continue homeschooling? Otherwise, would you like to try to go to a school or go back to school or whatever? So, I remember there's one year that I had begged my parents, because everybody on my cul-de-sac went to public school. And I was like, hey, I really, really want to go to public school. My parents were like, you sure about that? I was like, yeah, I really want to go. Okay, remember, once you start public school, you're going to go through that whole school year there. And I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, that's how that works. And I went, and like the 2 weeks in, I was like, this place freaking sucks. Because I'd finish my homework and I'd be like, okay, teacher, I'm done. It was like, I was like third grade. I was like, hey, I'm done. Can I go outside? And they're like, no. What do you mean? She's like, not everybody's done. You don't get to go out until it's recessed.
Yeah.
It's like, this is BS. But so like you're going to do with Cash, I mean, doing those little moments where you're like, hey, if you're going to start, you have from this period to this period, and you're going to stick with it.
Yeah.
And you're going to give it your all.
Yeah.
And doing that is going to lead to, it leads to instilling a sense of commitment in our kids.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be huge.
And that goes back to what the whole topic of is like, what can we do at home is commitment, right? All of that to say is it's about commitment and the follow through. And I think there's a lot more that goes way deeper at what we can do at home.
Yeah.
And it's things that sometimes are not spoken. You
Oh,
know,
100%.
like it's a lot of how you just act when you're at home, right? In your daily life, nothing exciting, just living, just communicating, just loving on my wife, just showering my kids with love and compliments and affirmations and making sure they genuinely know like how valued and loved they are, you know?
Well, it's like you said too, being the same person in your home that you are outside of your home, that you are at work. If you show your family that consistency of the person that you are, not changing personalities depending on where you go, that's a practical step.
100%. And then I think the ultimate thing, dude, is as we're obviously being parents, it's way deeper, way more in depth, and we can do it another day, but ultimately what we can do at home is love and nurture, right? But people sometimes twist the word love and think it's all, you know, rainbows and butterflies and happiness, right? That's one big component, but love means discipline, and love means ensuring that values are instilled, not out of a place of anger, but out of a place of wanting them to understand why, how, who, what, where, when, you know, all those fun things of, if I tell you don't touch a hot stove and you touch a hot stove and burn your hand, you know, like out of a place of love, I need to show you why you don't do that. Mm-hmm. And there's a consequence for what you just did. Mm-hmm. But I think that's one thing, I think that out of everything we're going to talk about or have talked about, love is the biggest thing we can do. Mm-hmm. And loving in all forms and all love languages and all components of, like I said, what love means. Like, just because I'm showing you love doesn't mean I can't be angry with you or angry at a situation. Just because I love you and I'm trying to shower you with love doesn't mean that there isn't a disciplinary side to that as well. And I think we live in a time right now too where you say the word love and it's all just like good. But name one relationship ever in the history of everything that there hasn't been a moment where your love has turned into other emotional things that help portray that love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm articulating that well enough.
No, that's like a great example. A great example of that is marriage, right? The first, you kind of have that first phase where you're, you obviously find each other attractive, right? There's like that, almost like a lust, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to know that person and it turns into love. And then that love, your initial idea of what that love is when you first start dating versus, now, I mean, Kayla and I are coming up on 6 years of marriage, but we've known each other for 13 years now. What I thought I loved her at the beginning of that 13 years has a completely different meaning now of love.
Oh, 100%,
and it's I don't love her any less. In fact, I love her more. It's a different kind of love. And that's something you obviously have to work on. But yeah, the phases of love are going to change and how it looks is going to change. 100%. And you got to learn how to adapt with that. But kind of to close it out, I just thought this topic was interesting because I find a lot of people that feel like there's a lot of anxiety around the world right now. They're like, there's this crisis and that crisis and this crisis and that crisis. And I liked the reason I wanted to bring, or the reason I brought up that topic and the reason I made that post is that a lot of times you get to a point where I see and I feel people that they feel hopeless. They feel like there's nothing I can do. Like what I do doesn't really matter. And I'm like, there is something you can do. And it starts with you and in your household,
Yeah.
because you have no idea the kind of impact that your kids might make on the world, or someone that sees how you and your family interact. You don't know how that's going to change them. But just that small dynamic of in your household, changing that can have such a profound impact on others around you. Like I see that with you and your family, and how many lives you guys have impacted just by living out who you are. And we're kind of saying that, I'm not tooting our own horn, but like George talked about it when he was here. He was that, he's like, just watching you guys be the way that you are, with your families and all that kind of stuff, it inspired him. And it's, things that seem common sense to us, we've talked about it. Things that seem common sense to us aren't, we're finding out that aren't necessarily common sense to most people.
Yeah.
And I think that what might help relieve some of that anxiety for people is that you can make a difference. Start at home. Start with your kids. Start with your wife. Start with your marriage. Start with your family, because you have no idea how that can spread throughout a lifetime.
For sure. And if you don't have those and you live at home with your parents, like start with your parents.
Oh, 100%.
Your parents have poured into you in so many different ways, whether they were good parents or bad parents. For the most part, if you have parents and they were in your life somewhat, they have had to pour into you. And I think it's starting at home doesn't just apply to husbands and wives and kids. It applies to whoever you live with. It could be, like I said, your parents, a brother, a sister, a friend, aunts, uncles, whoever it is, like just your home. Obviously, specifically to parents in the life stage that we're in and we're talking about is, it's a huge impact on our children. And we've talked about it numerous times, and we will continue to talk about it. But our children are just sponges, and they're longing for belonging to us. Our kids are longing for our approval, for our acknowledgement, for our love. And it shows every day. It shows by the things that they do, the mannerisms, the words that come out of their mouth, the actions that they do, their personalities. And a lot of that is learned behavior. I don't care what science says. When it comes to a child in a home with parents, most of that is learned behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Some of it obviously is just natural, and they build it, and it's in their own person, right?
Right.
But almost everything that my kids do and have done the last 5 years has been learned.
Oh, I mean, do you think about it as an adult? There's countless times now where I do something and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was my dad.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, that's something I 100% picked up from my dad,
Yeah.
So.
But no, it's true, man. I like that. We could obviously go way deeper.
Well, I was thinking that this will eventually probably end up being a series for us, a question that we can come back to, because that was a loaded topic, but It was a good one just to kick us off on.
And you haven't got to answer. So the next time we do a solo, maybe you answer a little bit more.
Down. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, we wanted to keep this one brief, guys, and try to find, again, something that was relevant. And I think it is extremely relevant, whether, again, you're a parent, you're not, but we all have a sphere of influence. And that influence can be started. It doesn't just have to be in your home. The home could be the metaphorical thing for you, but it could be your workplace. It could be, again, your friends, just your relationships that you have. If we all tried to be better in the way we conduct ourselves through those relationships, like that's a huge value added to those people. But we appreciate you, Jordan.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing this topic up.
Dude, thank you for spitballing. I appreciate it.
That's what we do.
Remember, like, share, subscribe, send this to somebody you think would enjoy it. We appreciate it. Go ahead and comment. That'd be great if you could comment on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you're at. That would be extremely helpful. But thank you guys so much for listening. Remember, be a good dude, be a good dad.
Boom.